Thanks, Nicole, for that. Thanks, Nicole, for that introduction. Like she said, my name is Emma Panuski. I am a painter here at Plaid Crafts. I am really excited to paint Winter's Wash with you all tonight. So like always, we'll have Caitlin in the chat from Plaid. So if you have any questions concerning the project or maybe a color I used, anything like that, feel free to put it in the chat section and she can relay some of those questions and comments over to me. So like always, let's just run through the supply list so you can make sure that you have everything to paint along with me tonight. So first of all, we are working with an 8x10 stretched canvas. But the great thing about this painting is that it's pretty versatile. So if you don't have a rectangle shaped canvas or an exact 8x10, that'll be just fine. So we have our canvas. We also have an assortment of FolkArt acrylic paint that we'll be working with today. So those colors are going to be light blue, pale gray, succulent, real brown, parchment, wicker white, silver marlin, and wrought iron. In addition to the paints, we're also going to be using a variety of flat and liner brushes. We have some scissors, a pencil, and also in the supply list, we included a free downloadable pattern. So it looks just like this. If you go to michaels.com under their classes and events page and you go under to this class listing, then you'll be able to find it right on that page for you to download and print out for our class. I have my water basin, a little paper palette for my paints, and we're also going to be working with a toothbrush tonight. So if you're confused as to we'll be using a toothbrush, you'll find out in a little bit, but it's a really great tool that I like to have in my painting corner. And I'm also going to be using a blow dryer tonight just to keep up with the pace of things so that we can make sure that we paint this in a little under an hour. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some succulent onto my palette. And I'll show you guys. So we're going to be mixing a 1-to-1 ratio of succulent and light blue. So 50-50. Hold on, a little bit of technical difficulties.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay. Is the other camera connecting?
We did have it up briefly. I'm not sure where it went to.
You might have to accept it one more time.
All right, no worries. What is the name of the camera again?
It might be Andy Cam or Palette Cam.
Okay, you should be able to get the device back on.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You should be able to get the video back on. All right, the
Oh.
video is on.
Yep. Just needs to be switched.
Yep, switch
Sorry,
the camera.
guys. No, you keep that one. And you just push the swap button.
All right, we're back.
Okay. Is it horizontal or vertical, you guys?
It is sideways.
Yeah, let me fix it. It's okay, just go back to swap. All right. Now just flip it. There
you
it
go.
goes. All right, can you still hear us?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're rolling with the punches tonight. Okay, so the last thing that I just did is I put on my palette a 1-to-1 ratio of light blue and
Okay, now we are having trouble hearing you.
Okay, 1 second.
flat brush.
It sounds like this one's muted now over there. Okay.
All right, so with that succulent and the light blue, we're mixing a 1-to-1 ratio of the two. I'm gonna mix it until the two colors are really well combined. And then we're gonna apply that into the middle of our canvas.
And just making sure audio is good.
I can hear you. Emma, do you want to say something for us? Because I do not hear Emma at the moment.
Can you hear her, Emma? Well, she
Okay, so
can't.
once I'm done with that, I have quite a bit of paint on my brush. So I'm just gonna take a paper towel and unload a lot of that paint. A paper towel, and then dip it into my mason jar that's full of water and just rinse my brush really well.
Emma, can you please re-go over the
And
colors?
those two colors that I just mixed, it was a 50-50 ratio of light blue and succulent. Would you mind talking to us, Nicole?
Yes, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me at all now?
Why don't we just?
I am talking, but I don't think anyone can hear me. Folks, we are really sorry about this. We are currently working on getting this together, so just bear with us as we try to get this sorted out, okay?
Recording in progress.
That one.
All right, folks, please bear with us as we are getting this technically set up.
Okay, so you still can't hear her?
No, we are having trouble with the Andy cam, I think is the issue.
Okay. Okay, can you hear?
Yes, there's a little echo, but we
Okay.
can hear something from this one. So once the other device is dealt with, it should be fine.
Okay. All right. So I just went ahead and added to my palette some light blue and some succulent. Now I'm going to apply the light blue to the upper third of my canvas with my medium-sized flat brush.
So just to confirm what we've gone over so far, you've mixed succulent and light blue to get the middle color, and you are currently doing light blue at top, and that's where we're at, correct?
Correct, yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Emma. Appreciate you.
Of course, yeah. So this middle section, like Nicole said, it was a 50-50 ratio of our light blue and our succulent. And now what I'm doing is I'm applying my just plain light blue to the top third of our canvas. I'm not worried about mixing these two colors together yet. I'm just going ahead and getting these solid bands onto my canvas. Okay, so once you've done that, again, I'm going to rinse my brush. And to the bottom third of our canvas, I'm going to apply just succulent. This really beautiful, soft, minty, earthy green color. Again, not worried about blending the colors together yet. I just want to have these initial layers of our paint down onto our canvas. All right. And once you've done that, now I'm going to rinse my brush one more time. Okay, so I'm seeing some colors about, or some questions about the succulent. If you don't have succulent, what you could do is mix your light blue with just a touch of a dark green color. Okay, and once we get to this point, I'm actually going to go ahead and take my blow dryer and dry the paint that's currently on my canvas. Okay, I saw somebody said they used mossy meadow instead of succulent. That's a great idea. Whatever kind of pale earthy green color that you have would work really well in place of succulent. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to use a technique called double loading. So looking at my brush here, I'm going to load one color of paint on one end of my brush and a different color of paint on the opposite end of my brush. And I'll show you what that looks like. First, we're going to load one end in our light blue. So it looks like this. And then the other end in that mixed color that we mixed in the very beginning. So that you see I have both colors on dual ends of my brush. And we want to make sure that when we apply it to our canvas, that those colors align with the orientation of how they are on our canvas right now. So taking our double loaded brush, right where these two colors come together, I'm going to smoothly brush back and forth, coming a little bit up, coming a little bit down, just really blending those two colors until they look pretty seamless. If you're finding that your paint is dragging a little bit, maybe you live in a drier environment and your paint dries up more quickly, you can just dip a little bit of your brush in some water, and that should help reanimate that paint so that it blends really smoothly onto your canvas.
And do you paint the sides as well?
Yes, so now's a good time to go ahead and paint those sides just for time's sake. I'm not too worried about the sides right now because I can go back and finish that after the class, but you can absolutely paint your sides of your canvas now. Good question. Okay, so with that double loaded brush, I'm just blending these two colors together. And then once I'm done, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my brush. And now we're gonna do the same thing again, except with our succulent on one end and that 50-50 mix on the other end. I'm gonna dip a little bit into my water while there's paint on it. And I'm brushing back and forth, kind of working up a little bit, working down. And you can do this as many times as you want until you feel like there's a really seamless fade of the colors on your canvas. Okay, so now it looks a little bit like this, all right? And just to touch it up, green can sometimes be a tricky color to get super opaque initially. So I'm gonna, after I've rinsed my brush, I'm gonna go back and apply a little bit more succulent to my bottom section of my canvas just to make it nice and opaque. Okay, so now we're in a good spot and you get to find out what the toothbrush is all about. So I have a little cup here, not my water basin, but just a little plastic cup. You can use whatever kind of cup that you like. I have just a little bit of water in it, and this might actually be too much. I would say that this is about a tablespoon of water, so I'm gonna let some of that go until we're left with about a teaspoon of water. I'm going to take my Wicker White and squeeze some directly into my little cup of water. I'm gonna take whatever brush, you can use a round brush, flat brush, doesn't matter. And I'm gonna mix my water and my Wicker White until they're both really well incorporated. We're looking for like an ink-like consistency, ink or milk. And just mix, mix, mix until they're really well combined. Okay, so now I will warn you guys, for this next step, you'll want to make sure that your workspace is covered because there could potentially be some paint going rogue. That's why I have this big sheet of palette paper here, just to make sure that I don't get any paint on my table where I don't want it to be. So I'm going to take my toothbrush, dip it into that water and paint mixture that we just mixed up. Offload it a little bit. We don't want too much on our brush. And I'm gonna hold my toothbrush like this, holding my thumb here, and starting at the top of my toothbrush, I'm gonna rake my thumb down my toothbrush. And I'll show you what happens when we do that. we get this really soft, subtle, snowy effect. I'm gonna do it again. The more paint that you have on your brush, the bigger your flurries of snow will be. So if you want a finer mist, then make sure to offload some of that paint. Just have fun. Okay. All right, so now I like how much snow I have there. So I'm gonna put my toothbrush in my water basin and just take a paper towel and wipe off my thumb there. Okay, and one more time, I am going to take my blow dryer to my canvas, make sure it's nice and dry for our next step. Okay, so now we have our background complete. You can see that's a technique that I love to use whenever I'm creating any kind of blended ombre background like this. I like to mix my two colors that I'm trying to blend together and create a middle section of just that mixed color so that you get a really beautiful seamless transition, especially if your colors are not very similar, like this green and this light blue. They're not the most similar colors in the world. So mixing those two colors together really helps to achieve that seamless blend.
And
All
could
right.
you summarize the colors that you've used already?
Yeah, so this is light blue, this is succulent, and this is a 1-to-1 mix of light blue and succulent. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna break out that downloadable pattern. And again, if you're just now joining us, you can find this on michaels.com under their classes and events page. Once you go to this class specifically, you will see a link to download this pattern. It's free and you just have to print it out and then you'll be ready to go. So what I'm doing is I'm just using my scissors to cut out the outline of my owl pattern. Until we're left with this. So so you see some of the black lines from our pattern. I'm actually gonna flip it over. We're gonna use this side. And I'm gonna set it so that it's about 1.5 to 2 inches from the top is where the head of our owl starts. And in this kind of orientation. So I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm just gonna go around and trace the outline of our owl. Okay. And while we're at it, while we're sketching, I am going to make 2 little dash points about 2.5 inches from either side of our canvas. So I have those 2 little dash points right here, so I know where I'm going. our owl's claws, talons, will end about here. So about a 1/2 inch above that, kind of where our tail feather starts, I'm going to make another line there. And I'm just going to sketch these 2 lines coming up here, intersecting my feathers. And at this middle point that we marked, I'm going to make a curved line coming down here and another curved line here. And next, excuse me, we're going to mirror this curved line that we just sketched to create a very skinny circle. So just mirroring that curved line, so we end up with kind of like a cylinder shape, like this. Okay. While I have my pencil in my hand, we're going to keep doing a little bit more sketching. So you see this shape right where this little divot here, right here. And we're also going to look at this little divot here, right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to create a curved line that connects those 2 little divot points. Like this. Okay. And next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sketch out the face of my owl. So about a 1/2 inch below the middle point of his head, I'm going to make a little dot, just a little mark so I know where I'm going. And about 2 inches below that, I'm going to make another dot, parallel to one another. So these 2 dots, I'll show you our final piece, are going to be the top and the bottom of his face, which if you'll notice, kind of resembles a heart a little bit. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to go ahead and create that little heart shape that is our owl's face. Like this. And I'll make it actually a little bit wider. That's the great thing about using a pencil, is that you can always go back in and adjust something if you're not happy with what you did the first time. Something like that. This would also be a really cute painting if you get really good at this painting and you want to switch it up with maybe some Valentine's colors. This would be a super cute painting to do for February if you use maybe some pinks and some purples and reds. Okay. So after that, right where we created this divot here, I'm going to go right about here. Mark a little space. And I'm going to make a line like this. And I created a kind of scalloped pattern, like so. That's gonna be representing our owl's feathers, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and erase some of the lines that I'm not pleased with, just so I don't get confused when we start adding paint later. All right, you guys. So next what we're gonna do is I am going to apply some parchment, the color parchment, to my palette. And I'm gonna take my number 8 flat, dip it in my parchment, and I'm gonna go ahead and fill in this middle section of our owl. So we're not quite hitting those wings yet, just our middle section. And I might just have to switch to a smaller flat brush, which is totally fine to get in these harder to reach spaces. Okay. And now we're going to start thinking about our wing, okay? So we went ahead and we sketched out kind of a scalloped pattern to be the 4 bottom wings. But what we're going to do now is about halfway up. So we see the full scope of the wing, talking about where it starts here and then where our scalloped pattern begins. About halfway down that, I'm going to create these little half circles with my small flat brush. And however many you want to create, that's up to you. And I'm going to fill that section in. Okay. Well, we still have the parchment on our brush. Every other scalloped feather that you sketched out, we're going to paint in every other one. So I'm going to skip my first one, skip the third one, and then come in for this last one. Just like that. All right, I'm going to rinse my brush. And then next up, I'm going to add some real brown to the palette. We're going to do a little bit more paint mixing. I'm going to take my number 8 flat kind of small to medium sized flat brush. And I'm going to take some of my parchment, bring it down here. And we're going to mix a ratio of about 2 parts parchment to 1 part real brown. And I'm going to mix those 2 colors together until they're well combined. Okay, now offload that paint. And we're going to use this color to fill in the forefront of our trunk. So that really skinny circle that we sketched, we're going to avoid that, just paint around it, just filling in the bottom section of our tree trunk. Okay, now I'm going to rinse my brush. And using that real brown, I'm going to use that to fill in the top skinny circle of our trunk. Till it looks something like that. All right, now again, I'm going to rinse my brush. And next, we're going to add to our palette some Wicker White. And I'm going to take my small flat brush, load it with my Wicker White, and I'm going to go ahead and paint the face of our owl in. Okay, now again, I'm going to rinse my brush. And we're going to load 2 new colors to our palette, Pale Gray and Silver Marlin. All right, reaching back for that small flat brush. I'm going to go in with my Silver Marlin, that's that darker gray color, and we're going to paint the whole left wing of our owl. Okay, now while we have our Silver Marlin on our brush, those scalloped is the word I'm looking for, those scalloped feathers that we painted. Remember how we skipped every other? We were saving space for our Silver Marlin. So go ahead and fill in those feathers now. Okay, rinse my brush. Fill this little spot in with parchment. I don't know how we missed that. No worries. Okay. I'm also going, not also, next, I am going to, after we rinse our brush, make sure it's nice and dry, and then dip our small flat brush into our pale gray. And we're going to paint the tail feathers of our owl. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go around these other shapes that we painted in. And I think it looks nice when the tail feathers are living behind our trunk. So I'm going to let the trunk be at the forefront and let the tail feathers fall behind. So keeping that in mind, I'm not going to intersect the trunk. I'm just going to paint around it, painting right up to the outline that we traced. Like so. All right, so now we're in a good spot, and I am going to go ahead and blow dry the paint that we have on our canvas right now. Okay, so next what we're going to do is I am going to switch up my brush for a smaller liner brush. And I'm going to go ahead and dip it into my Silver Marlin. And if you want to, it might not be a bad idea. I'm going to actually set my brush down. I'm going to pick up my pencil, and we're going to go ahead and start to sketch in the scalloped pattern of the feathers here. So they're going to live right above these longer wings that we already painted in. So I'm going to just start to, and they kind of hang a little bit over these wings here.
And what was the color of the tail again?
That's pale gray.
Okay.
And just going up, creating rows of feathers on our owl. We'll do about one more. till it looks almost kind of like scales. Now that we've done that, I'm going to go back to my loaded brush and I'm just going to fill over with my Silver Marlin. And I'm starting at the bottom and I'm working my way up to the top because it's okay if we overlap the bottom layer, but I don't quite want to overlap the top layer. So we're starting at the bottom and we're working up. Something like that. And while we have the Silver Marlin out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint in the veins of our feathers. So again, I'm going to switch my brush. Oops, I'm going to switch my brush. I'm going to rinse it. It fell into my brown. I'm going to pick up my pencil and you can see that there's kind of a little notch here, and that's separating our two feathers. So starting at the notch and going up towards the body of our owl, I'm just creating a slightly curved line to differentiate those two feathers. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to keep with that same curved structure, and I'm going to intersect the middle of each feather now. Okay? Like this. And now I'm going to start to create kind of like a pitchwork pattern, where the veins meet up to the center of our feather. And I like them to be symmetrical. That's just a personal thing. I just think it looks better. Okay, and while we're sketching, I'm going to now focus my attention to the body of the owl. And you can see we have these kind of like tuft looking feathers. So what they are just little commas. So I'm going to start somewhere in the middle, and I'm just going to make some irregular looking comma strokes. Some are shorter, some are longer. They're not quite in a row. They're just random. And that's something that's good to focus on when you're painting, particularly when you're painting organic things like this, like an animal. Okay, so gonna switch back to that liner brush, make sure there's no more brown on it. Get it nice and dry. And I'm gonna dip back into my Silver Marlin. Okay, so now those two shapes that we just sketched, I'm gonna fill in with that Silver Marlin. So that's gonna be the veins of our feathers. And we're not outlining the feathers, we're just separating them. And again, with these little tufts. And for these little comma strokes, I think the more curved, the better, because it gives the illusion that he's kind of sticking his chest out like he's proud and he's doing a job. He's guarding the forest. All right. So while I still have my Silver Marlin on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to outline the face. So when we're creating long strokes like this with a small brush or a liner brush or a round brush, if you find that it would be easier for you to create one long stroke instead of picking up and putting down your paintbrush again and again, then my tip for you would be to add just a little bit of water to your brush. Just wet that brush a little bit. That'll help you achieve a much more continuous and fluid stroke. Just a little bit of water to your brush. Like so. And since we still have the Silver Marlin, what I'm going to do is right here is the line of his neck, right? Thinking of kind of like, where would the necklace fall on this owl? What I'm going to do is I'm going to create little tiny strokes that are not on top of each other, but they're pretty close. Short little strokes, just like this. Okay, and now again, I'm going to rinse my brush. And going back to my pencil, let's go ahead and start to sketch his facial features. So when we're talking about the beak of the owl, it's going to be in the lower half, of course, and it's kind of like a upside down teardrop. So the pointed end is right here. I'm going to mark it for us. And I'm just going to create an upside down teardrop or a triangle that's rounded where 2 points would be. And then we're going to go ahead and draw 2 almond shapes that are our owl's eyes. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pick back up into my succulent with a smaller flat brush, and I'm going to fill in my almond shape. Okay, then I'm going to rinse my brush. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that liner brush that we were working with a little while ago. And I'm going to load some of my pale gray. And I'm going to go in some of my feathers and I'm going to create some more layered scallop shapes. Just scalloping, creating some more depth and interest in our owl's feathers. I'm going to create little kind of blocks of color, just little dabs with my paintbrush, going down the length of those longer feathers that we painted in. And with my pale gray too, I'm going to go back to our owl's necklace, and in between each of those Silver Marlin strokes, I'm going to fill in with my pale gray. like that. Okay.
And could you repeat the main color of the owl's fur?
Yeah, so this main color right here is Parchment. Okay, and so we could have done this with our Silver Marlin, but I forgot. So we're gonna go back and do it. But while we still have our pale gray, I'm gonna just create some sporadic little strokes on the head of our owl. So above the necklace. And we're thinking while we're doing this, they're not gonna be quite as concentrated as the neckline of our owl, just to kind of fill up some of this space. We're gonna leave some of that parchment color in between. We don't want it to be as close and crowded as that neckline, but we're just gonna add a couple of those strokes. Right, now rinsing my brush. And now I'm gonna pick up my pencil. And what I'm gonna do is right about here, right where the wing comes to the end and we meet back up at the body of our owl, I'm gonna create 2 lines like this. See that there? It's 2 lines. Try to see if I can get it where you can see it really well. And then I'm gonna create 2 lines going outward like this. So it's almost like he's bow-legged. In the center of that, I'm gonna create a triangle. And then I'm gonna create 2 more triangles like this, creating his talons. Okay. All right, so now while I still have my pencil, I'm gonna show you guys how I paint in the wood grain on our tree stump. So it's a series of lines, right? I have 1 line there. And somewhere down the line, it's gonna part ways. I have 1 line going here, and now it's gonna part ways. I have 1 line going here, now it's parting ways. So it's almost kind of like a sequence of wishbones is maybe a good way to describe it. Or maybe like the mouth of a river. So we have the river here, and now we have the mouth of the river. And in the mouth of the river, we'll have some circles that will be the tree rings. And we're just creating lines and rivers and mouths of our rivers until we are left with a wood grain that we're happy with. And in the center here, I want you to think of what a ripple of water looks like. If you drop a stone into really still water, you get that ripple effect. That's kind of what we're going for the top of the tree trunk. So we don't want really any perfect circles, but we want like kind of like little curves that are following the natural curvature of that skinny circle that we sketched in. But we're kind of creating like a ripple effect on the top there. All right, so I'm gonna go back into that color that we mixed up. That was our parchment and our real brown. I'm actually gonna reanimate this with a little bit of water. It's a little dry in the studio today, so I get a really clean line. All right, so if you forgot, this is a mixture of 2 parts parchment to 1 part real brown. And I'm going to take this light brown color and paint in some of those ripples. Like so. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush. And now I'm gonna apply some more Wicker White to my palette because mine's a little bit dry. I'm gonna take that tiny liner brush again, make sure it's nice and clean, and go into my Wicker White. And we're gonna create another scalloped pattern. You guys should be really good at the scalloped pattern by now. And we're gonna go ahead and create some comma strokes on the left wing. Going all the way down his wing. And now I'm gonna add some more detail to the main group of feathers. And the fun thing about this pattern is that you can really be done whenever you want to be done. You can keep adding to it. You cannot add quite as much as I do. It's totally up to you how you want the owl's feathers to look. And I'm adding a little bit more of those dashes, just adding some more color to our feathers there. And while I have my white out, I'm going to go ahead and fill in his talons. Okay, I'm going to hit his neckline with those tiny little dashes there. And a couple on his head. Do, do, do. Okay, rinse my brush. Now I'm going to apply a new color to the palette, some Wrought Iron. And I'm going to take my tiny liner brush again, and I'm going to outline the eyes of our owl. Okay, and at the tops of the outline, like the roof of the outline, I'm going to create a little half circle, kind of like a dome in the middle of the top. Fill that in with my wrought iron. And now we have some pupils for our owl. And then go ahead and also fill in his beak. Okay, since we still have that wrought iron, I'm going to create some little talons. Just kind of dabbing down with my tiny brush and my wrought iron, creating talons, like little nails on the ends of his talons. Okay, we're almost done, you guys. We have a couple more steps and then we are good to go. All right, so I'm going to take my pale gray with my small liner brush again, and I'm just going to go ahead and outline the white here. One thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we section off the two different talons, since he does have two. So in the middle triangle, I'm just going to create a straight line going to the top. creating that difference. Rinse my brush. Oh, I'm sorry, don't rinse your brush yet. We have some of that pale gray on our brush there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna create, boop, a tiny little stroke on his beak here. It just acts as a highlight. I think it's a nice little touch. And finally, I'm gonna apply some more real brown because I think mine is a little bit dried. Taking my liner brush, and we're gonna go ahead and fill in that wood grain sketch that we did. Some long continuous strokes. Can add a little bit of water to this so it's really nice and smooth for me. And with that, you guys, we have Winter's Watch. So I want to give a huge thank you for tuning in with us tonight. If you want to get a recap of anything, make sure to go to Michael's YouTube channel. They are going to upload this in 24 to 48 hours. So you can rewatch and pause and fast forward and rewind at your leisure. Thank you again for having so much patience with us for some of our technical difficulties tonight. It's always such a pleasure painting with you all. I really, really appreciate you joining me tonight. And until next time, we will see you guys later. Bye.